Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here. And in today's video, we're going to be talking through some player props I like on Prizepicks for the Week 4 NFL slate. Going to give you guys 3 plays I'm liking for the Sunday slate of games. Going to break down these plays. We're going to share why I like them. But before we do get started, guys, make sure to hit that like button down below. If you enjoy these Prizepicks videos, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. And if you guys are new to the channel, if you are new to Prizepicks, if you don't have a Prizepicks account, make sure that you go sign up. Use that promo code NOAH when you do sign up for Prizepicks. With my promo code, you'll get $50 in free lineups just for playing your first $5 lineup. So you sign up, use code NOAH, play $5. Prizepicks then will give you $50 worth of free lineups, and then you can use those free lineups to hopefully win some money and start to build up that bankroll over on Prizepicks. So definitely check them out if you guys have not yet. And I do want to shout out Prizepicks as well because they do have a free square. Once again this week, Jalen Hurts pass yards is set at 0.5, and this is a free pick available to everyone. So if you already have a Prizepicks account, you can use this free square. If you don't have a Prizepicks account, that's just another incentive to sign up. There's a free pick this week. Anytime Prizepicks gives out these free picks, free squares, they do the discounts, promotions. I'm going to promote them to you guys because they're, basically free money, and I'm trying to help you guys make money in the end. So sign up for Prizepicks again. Use that code NOAH if you don't have an account over there. And then I do also want to give a quick shout out to Sleeper because we also have a partnership with Sleeper, and you guys can go sign up for Sleeper. Use promo code NOAH when you sign up, and you'll get your first deposit matched up to $100. So you sign up, deposit $100. If you want to do that, Sleeper will give you an additional $100 to play with. You don't have to deposit $100. You could sign up and deposit $10, but you only get a $10 bonus. Obviously, the more you deposit, the bigger bonus you get. But definitely take advantage of those deposit bonuses. Anytime these sites do deposit bonus promos, you want to take advantage of those. Sleeper are going to give you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. Again, when you sign up with code NOAH. So go download the Sleeper app. Check them out, guys. Use that code NOAH if you don't have an account over there. But we got 3 plays to talk about for this Week 4 NFL slate. Now, I do want to recap our plays from last week. Went 3-0 last week once again. So I think we've gone 3-0 back-to-back weeks for the Sunday slate. The Sunday slates have been treating us really well. So hopefully you guys have been tailing and making some money. We'll try and keep it going here for this Week 4 slate. Been really locked in with our reads lately, and hopefully we can keep that rolling. So talking through some plays that I'm liking for Sunday. First prop that we're going to take a look at is going to be on Drake London. And I'm liking Drake London for more than 5.5 receptions. So if you look at what Drake London has done this season, he has only gone over this line once. He went over Week 1 against Tampa Bay. In that game, he had 8 receptions on, I think he had like 11 or 12 targets in that game. No, 15 targets. 15 targets, 8 receptions in Week 1. And then in their Week 2 game against Minnesota, that was a game where Atlanta pretty much controlled the game for a majority of the game. Michael Penix did not have very many pass attempts in that game. He only had, I think, like 21 pass attempts. So it was just a game where, Atlanta had a lead. They were running the ball a lot. They were killing the clock. They weren't really throwing much. Michael Penix only had 21 pass attempts. Drake London only had 3 receptions. And then last week against Carolina, they did have more pass attempts last week, 36 pass attempts. But it was also a game that, Carolina basically just beat the crap out of Atlanta. Atlanta got beat 0-30. Drake London did have 5 receptions last week, though, but that was a game where Atlanta's offense, they were just terrible. They couldn't get anything going. This week, going back home, I expect Atlanta's offense to play better at home, and I like the matchup here for Drake London going up against the Commanders. The Commanders have been a defense that's been much more susceptible to the pass than the run. The Commanders, if you look at their stats this year against the run, they've been pretty stout against the run. They're only allowing 198 rush yards to opposing running backs. That's bottom 10 in the league. Whereas if you look at their stats to wide receivers, they've been a lot more giving to the wide receiver position. They rank in the top half of the league in terms of receiving yards allowed to receivers. Fantasy points, they've given up a lot of those to receivers as well. It's definitely a much better matchup for the pass game for Atlanta here than the run game, in my opinion. And if you look at Drake London's stats with Michael Penix, ever since Michael Penix has took over at quarterback, he has pretty heavily targeted Drake London on a weekly basis. You look at the games that Drake London has played with Penix, 8 targets, 7 targets, 8 targets, 13 targets, 18 targets, 15 targets, 4 and 8 targets. And then in those games, he's had 6, 3, 5, 7, 10, 8, 3, and 5 receptions. So he's gone over this line, and I think half of the games he's played with Penix, he's gone over this line in 3 out of the 4 games he's played with Penix at home. And I like, seeing those stats as well at home. London has played well, and it makes sense for London to play well at home because Atlanta plays in a dome. And I've said this so many times, dome environments are always going to be better and more favorable for scoring, for offense, just because you don't have to worry about weather, you don't have to worry about wind. Those type of things can definitely have an impact on scoring. But in dome environments, you typically see games be a little bit more higher scoring. Obviously, Atlanta plays in a dome. Drake London, I want to say his stats at home have historically been pretty good. So I do like this spot for Drake London to be able to, kind of get back on track. The targets, they've been there on a weekly basis under Michael Penix. Whether it's Penix, Cousins, doesn't really matter. London's a guy that earns a lot of targets in this Atlanta offense. I think 5.5 receptions is something that he can definitely get here, and I do also like his over on 8.5 targets. I think that's another line you could look at as well. Feel a little bit better about receptions, but I would think if London gets 9 targets, he probably has 6 receptions. But obviously, if they're not connecting on some of those passes, then maybe he goes over targets but not receptions. But I like the matchup overall for London. Like him for more than 5.5 receptions this week. Now, our next play is going to be on Christian Kirk, and we're going to take Christian Kirk for more than 5.5 targets. So Christian Kirk made his debut with the Texans last week. He was injured to start the season, but he made his debut last week, had 8 targets against Jacksonville. In that game, he only had, I think, 3 receptions, but he did have 8 targets. He was pretty heavily involved in his first game with Houston, and going into the season, I think most people expected Christian Kirk to be involved, in this Houston offense, because you look at his competition for targets, he doesn't have a lot of competition for targets outside of Nico Collins. So you look at this last week. In that game, Christian Kirk played 67% of the snaps, so he played the second most snaps of any of the wide receivers. 67% of the snaps. Nico Collins played 86% of the snaps, and then you had Xavier Hutchinson 62%, Jaden Higgins 44%, Jalen Noel 14%. But you look at the other receivers outside of Nico Collins, Xavier Hutchinson, he has never been a high target guy. I think this season, Xavier Hutchinson's averaging 2 or 3 targets per game. And then the other 2 receivers, Higgins and Noel, are both rookies out of Arizona State. Now, those 2 guys did play pretty well at Arizona State, but obviously in the NFL, things are different. So far in the NFL, both Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel have not really been able to earn a lot of targets. I mean, Jaden Higgins this season has 5 targets through 3 games, and Jalen Noel has 3 targets through 3 games. So it's not surprising to see Kirk come in and immediately get 8 targets in his first game, and I think we can expect that to continue. I think he's going to be a guy that consistently gets 6 to 8 targets most weeks. I think the reason his lines are lower to start the season is just because he's coming back from injury. Obviously, it's harder to project players when they return from injury, but Kirk looked fine last week. I know he didn't put up the best numbers, but the volume was there. I think the volume should be there on a weekly basis. And we look at this matchup against Tennessee. Tennessee, the Titans, they've historically been a team that's much easier to throw on than to run on. The Titans have historically had a pretty good run defense, and I want to say so far this season, their run defense has been pretty bad. They've been worse against the run, but historically, the Titans have been a tough team to run on. They've been a much easier team to throw on. I want to say this year against the pass, I mean, the Titans, I think, have still been pretty bad. They've just overall been bad. Their defense has. The Titans' defense, they've been bad against the pass and the run. So I think the matchup's good regardless for Christian Kirk. And at home in Houston, in the Dome, again, I think another spot where it's a more favorable scoring environment. I know the total in this game is really low. It's a 38 total. A lot of that's due to both these teams' offenses have not been great to start the season. But I'm not completely out on the Texans' offense yet. I mean, I think C.J. Stroud's still a good quarterback. This offense, they still got some weapons at wide receiver. Kirk, I expect to be one of the top targets in this offense on a weekly basis. 6 targets, I don't think it's a lot to ask here for Christian Kirk. He got 8 targets in his first game with Houston last week. Wouldn't be surprised if you see similar production this week. So that'll be our second play for Sunday. And then our third and final play is going to be a touchdown combo. So on Prizepicks, they have the rush plus receiving touchdowns combo. You basically have 2 players, and you can project whether you think they score more than their touchdown projection. So if you look, all the players, the 2 players that are combined on the board, all of them are at 0.5 touchdowns. However, there's one line that's at 1.5 touchdowns, and it's Ladd McConkey and Mark Andrews. Now, I'm not exactly sure if this is an error by Prizepicks, if Prizepicks put this line at 1.5, for a reason. But you look at some of the projections on the board. So Ladd McConkey, if we look at other players or if we look at other spots with Ladd McConkey, they have Ladd McConkey paired with Calvin Ridley at 0.5 touchdowns. So basically, if you would take the over on that, you would need one of those two guys to score a touchdown. If you take the under, you want neither one of those guys to score a touchdown. Well, Calvin Ridley and Mark Andrews have pretty similar odds to score a touchdown. So that already stands out to me right there, is that McConkey and Ridley is at 0.5, McConkey and Andrews is at 1.5, even though Andrews and Ridley have very similar odds to score a touchdown. And then if we look for some other projections with Mark Andrews, there's another projection with Mark Andrews, if I can find it, right here, Mark Andrews and Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta, I think this week is like plus 200 to score a touchdown, and Ladd McConkey is like plus 190. So McConkey and Laporta basically have the same odds to score a touchdown, yet they're putting Andrews and Laporta at 0.5. They're putting Andrews and McConkey at 1.5. So I think this line is supposed to be at 0.5 and not 1.5. I think this is an error on Prizepicks' part. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Prizepicks knows something that I don't, and McConkey scores 2 touchdowns this week and I lose this play. But I'm taking the under here. I'm taking less than 1.5 touchdowns for McConkey and Andrews. Look, you look at the odds. I mean, this is just a math play. You look at the odds for these two guys to score a touchdown this week. I think McConkey's like plus 200 or plus 190, like I said earlier. And then Andrews, I think, actually has longer odds. He's like plus 250 to score a touchdown. And it is worth noting that Isaiah Likely has a chance to return this week for the Ravens, which could definitely hurt Andrews, playing alongside Isaiah Likely. Likely is a guy that they can target in the red zone. He potentially can take touchdowns away from Mark Andrews. Just don't know why this line's at 1.5. I think this line should be at 0.5. I think this is an error on Prizepicks' part. If, come Sunday, Ladd McConkey scores 2 touchdowns, or, McConkey and Andrews both score a touchdown, then I'll just take the L and, Prizepicks wins. Maybe Prizepicks is baiting me, but I saw this line and I was like, that doesn't look right, and I don't think this line's right. Just doing the math in my head, these two guys should not be projected to score 2 touchdowns. And if they do score 2 touchdowns, then so be it. But I think more times than not, you play this game out 100 times, these two guys don't score 2 touchdowns probably 70% of the time, 75% of the time. So I think this is definitely a play that goes under more times than not. I know touchdowns can be very volatile. They're very tough to predict. Even if a guy has really good odds to score a touchdown, there's not a guarantee that he does score a touchdown. And then if a guy has very long odds to score a touchdown, like it's not very likely, he still could get a touchdown. So it's very fluky. I know touchdowns can be very tough to predict, but I'm just playing the math game here. And I think more times than not, when you send these games out, these two guys don't come away with 2 touchdowns combined. I think this line on Prizepicks should be at 0.5 and not 1.5. So hopefully I'm not falling into a trap here. But I think, again, like I said, I think the math backs up this play, and it's definitely a prop that I do like. So these are going to be the 3 props, guys, that we roll with for Sunday. Taking Drake London for more than 5.5 receptions, Christian Kirk for more than 5.5 targets, and Ladd McConkey and Mark Andrews to combine for less than 1.5 touchdowns. So yeah, we got 3 plays for Sunday, guys. Let's see if we can go 3-0. Once again, we've been rolling with our Sunday NFL plays. Let's try and keep it up this week for week 4. As always, guys, appreciate you watching these Prizepicks videos. Appreciate your support on the channel. Make sure that you hit that like button down below if you enjoy these videos. Hit that subscribe button as well. And go sign up for Prizepicks. Again, use that promo code NOAH if you don't have an account on Prizepicks, so that way you get those $50 in free lineups just for signing up with code NOAH. But good luck, guys. Let's make some money this week, and I'll see you guys in the next video.